Well, Prince Andrew has also paid tribute to the Queen in a statement that was released earlier. He said, and addressed it to Mummy, Mother, Your Majesty, 3 in 1, he said with that photograph.
Shocking news from Buckingham Palace has started to spread, leaving people talking everywhere. This time, it's not about royal events, tours, or public speeches. It's something much more personal. Reports claim that Prince Andrew has read out the late Queen's last will, and the details have left many stunned. In a surprising twist, recent reports suggest the will holds secrets no one expected. So what exactly did the Queen leave behind? And why has it caused such a stir inside the palace walls? Stay with us as we uncover the truth behind this royal story. Prince Andrew revelation of the Second Will. When Queen Elizabeth II died on September 8, 2022, the world lost the longest reigning monarch in British history. She passed away at Balmoral Castle, her beloved Scottish home, at the age of 96. The moment the news was released to the media, the nation fell silent. Operation London Bridge, the carefully planned set of steps for her death, immediately went into action. Flags were lowered, bells rang out, and a period of national mourning began. The world watched as King Charles III was officially proclaimed, and leaders across the globe sent their tributes. From the outside, everything seemed clear, organized, and ceremonial. But behind the walls of Buckingham Palace, there was something the public could not see. A mystery was beginning to grow. People started asking the same question again and again. What was in the Queen's will? And what inside the will was breathtaking. Keep watching for more. Normally, when someone dies in the United Kingdom, their will eventually becomes public record. Anyone can look it up. But the royal family has always been different. For over 100 years, the wills of senior royals have been legally sealed. That means no one outside the palace can read them. This tradition started back in 1910, after the death of Prince Francis of Teck. His will contained sensitive personal details, including gifts that could have embarrassed the royal household. To protect the crown, a decision was made to keep such documents locked away. Ever since then, the High Court has ordered that royal wills remain secret, usually for at least 90 years. So when Queen Elizabeth passed, her official will was quickly sealed too. It was locked in a safe and will stay hidden until long after most of us are gone. That secrecy only deepened the curiosity. What did she leave? To her children, her grandchildren, and even her great-grandchildren. For months, the palace stayed silent. But then whispers began to spread. Some claimed there was more than one will, a second, secret will. Now, in a surprising twist, Prince Andrew has reportedly come forward with details that shocked even those inside the palace. According to Andrew, the Queen did not leave just one will. She wrote another. This second will was not an official legal document, sealed and stamped by the courts. Instead, it was handwritten by the Queen herself, kept private and separate from the formal version. Sources close to Andrew say it was her way of making sure her most personal wishes were known to her family. It was not about money or power alone. It was about trust, love, and the relationships she valued most. So, what did this secret contain? Let's take a closer look. As the eldest son, King Charles inherited much of what naturally passes from monarch to monarch. The sovereign grant, the Duchy of Lancaster, and official royal duties became his responsibility. But in the secret will, the Queen left him something more intimate. Andrew revealed that Charles received a collection of private letters, handwritten notes, and documents the Queen had guarded for decades. Some were political, recording meetings with world leaders. Others were deeply personal, reflections on her reign and family. The Queen believed only Charles could be trusted to protect this archive and eventually decide how history would remember it. Next came Princess Anne, the Queen's only daughter. Known for her dedication and hard work, Anne was often called the Queen's Rock. In the secret will, Anne inherited the Queen's personal diaries, filled with daily reflections spanning 70 years. But there was more. The Queen also left her daughter equestrian items she had cherished. her riding boots, old stable records, and antique carriage pieces. To outsiders, these might seem like simple objects, but to Anne, they were symbols of the bond she shared with her mother through their love of horses. What about Andrew himself? Despite Prince Andrew's public scandals and withdrawal from official duties, the Queen did not forget him. In fact, she entrusted him with something very unusual: her private collection of family films. These included never-before-seen footage of royal holidays, family gatherings, and even behind-the-scenes moments from state visits. It was not about wealth or status. It was about memory. The Queen believed Andrew, more than anyone, would take care of the family's past and guard its history for future generations. As for Prince Edward, the Queen's youngest son, and his wife Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, had grown very close to her in her final years. In the secret will, Edward was given responsibility for continuing royal traditions linked to the Commonwealth Games. This was her way of recognizing his years of quiet public service. Their daughter, Lady Louise Windsor, was also remembered. She received a collection of antique brooches and copies of Queen Victoria's personal diaries. The Queen admired Louise's intelligence and love for history, and these gifts reflected that. The Queen's grandchildren held a special place in her heart, and the secret will showed it. Prince William officially inherited the Duchy of Cornwall, worth over £1 billion. But in the hidden will, the Queen also left him letters filled with advice. She wrote about the pressures of kingship and urged him to always balance duty with compassion. These letters, kept privately at Kensington Palace, may one day become part of William's legacy as king. For Catherine, Princess of Wales, the Queen left over 300 personal pieces of jewelry from her private collection. These included necklaces, brooches, and rings she had worn during important moments of her reign. More than gifts, they were symbols of the Queen's trust in Kate to carry forward the dignity of the monarchy. But here comes the shocking part. Despite the tensions with the family, the Queen never turned her back on her grandson Harry. Those close to the royals say that when Harry and Meghan stepped away from royal duties, it was the Queen herself who kept the line of communication open. In those difficult days, it was her voice Harry leaned on most, the one figure in the palace he still trusted. So it came as no surprise that in her private will, the Queen left something deeply personal just for Prince Harry. A sealed letter, written in her own hand, along with a small sapphire pin that once belonged to the Queen Mother. The letter was said to be filled with words of love, urging Harry to never forget his roots, no matter how far his road carried him. Meghan Markle did not receive a specific inheritance, but their daughter, Princess Lilibet, was mentioned by name. The Queen wrote a short message expressing her hope that the little girl would carry the nickname Lilibet with pride, just as she herself had done since childhood. The introduction of this will raises the biggest question of all. Why would the Queen create a secret will when the official one already existed? The answer lies in the nature of royal wills. By law, her official will was sealed away, hidden from public view, for nearly a century. That meant her family might never see her most personal wishes written in her own hand. The second will was her way of making sure her voice, her love, and her private instructions were not lost in the secrecy of tradition. She wanted her family to know not just what she owned, but what she felt. The Queen's hidden will paints a picture of a monarch who cared deeply about her family, even in her final days. It shows a woman who valued memory over money, letters over jewels, and trust over titles. And more than anything, she wanted to protect her legacy. Stay with us as we continue to uncover the legacy Queen Elizabeth II left behind. Queen Elizabeth's legacy. When people talk about Queen Elizabeth II, they often say her reign was more than just long. It was historic. For 70 years, she stood as Britain's symbol of duty, stability, and quiet strength. She became a constant presence in a world that changed faster than anyone could have imagined. From the end of World War II to the age of smartphones, she remained a steady figure, shaping the monarchy and holding it together through challenges, celebrations, and global shifts. Her legacy is not measured only in years, but in the way she carried out her role, the decisions she made, and the connection she kept with her people. Queen Elizabeth's path to the throne began in unusual times. During World War II, when London was under attack, she gave her first radio broadcast at just 14 years old. Speaking directly to children evacuated from the cities, she reassured them that better days would come. It was a small moment, but it showed her sense of duty, even as a teenager. By 1945, she wanted to do more than speak. Elizabeth joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, the women's branch of the British Army. There, she trained as a driver and mechanic. For the first time, the future queen rolled up her sleeves, wore a uniform, and worked alongside other young women. She learned how to drive army trucks and repair engines. This made Elizabeth the only female member of the royal family ever to serve in the armed forces. For many Britons, it was the first sign that she was willing to work, not just rule, but that was just the beginning. When her father, King George VI, died in 1952, Elizabeth became queen at just 25 years old. Her coronation in June 1953 was unlike any before it. For the first time in history, it was televised. More than 20 million people in Britain tuned in, and millions more watched around the world. At a time when televisions were still rare, families gathered in neighbors' homes just to see it. The broadcast transformed the monarchy. People no longer saw the crown as distant or unreachable. Instead, they felt part of the moment. Elizabeth was aware of this power. She embraced television not only for her coronation, but also for her Christmas broadcasts, making the monarchy feel closer to ordinary homes. It was a turning point in how royals connected with the public. No reign is without challenges, and Elizabeth faced her share. In 1966, tragedy struck in Wales when a coal tip collapsed in the village of Aberfan, killing 144 people, most of them children. The Queen delayed her visit by over a week, fearing her presence would distract from rescue efforts. When she finally went, she was deeply moved. But years later, she admitted it was one of her greatest regrets not to have gone sooner. 3 decades later, in 1997, another crisis shook the monarchy. Princess Diana's death left the public grieving and angry. At first, Elizabeth remained silent at Balmoral with her grandchildren, shielding them from the press. But the nation demanded words from their queen. When she finally addressed the people on live television, she spoke as both a monarch and a grandmother. That moment helped to heal the rift, though it also showed the changing expectations of a modern public. Even in her final years, she continued to be a source of comfort. During the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when the world faced isolation and fear, Queen Elizabeth delivered one of her most memorable speeches. Looking into the camera, she reminded the nation, "We will meet again." It was a simple phrase, but it echoed the wartime songs of her youth and gave people hope in dark times. And here comes the interesting part. Part of Elizabeth's legacy is inseparable from her marriage to Prince Philip. They were married in 1947 and stayed together for 73 years, until his death in 2021. Philip was often described as her strength and stay. While Elizabeth was the face of the monarchy, Philip was her support behind the scenes. Their relationship balanced tradition with personal devotion. Philip modernized parts of royal life, while Elizabeth leaned on him for counsel and companionship. Together, they raised 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward. Their marriage survived challenges and shifting public attitudes, becoming a symbol of resilience. When Philip died, the image of the Queen sitting alone at his funeral during COVID restrictions became one of the most poignant moments of her reign. Elizabeth's reign also transformed Britain's role in the world. When she became queen, the British Empire was ending. In its place grew the Commonwealth, a voluntary association of nations, many of which had once been colonies. She made it her mission to keep those ties alive. Over her life, Queen Elizabeth visited more than 100 countries, meeting leaders from every corner of the globe. She was the only monarch most Commonwealth nations had ever known. Leaders often spoke of her calm diplomacy and her ability to bridge divides without political speeches. Queen Elizabeth met nearly every American president from Harry Truman to Joe Biden, showing the continuity of her reign through decades of global change. These meetings were not just formalities. They reinforced Britain's role on the world stage, even as its empire faded. But her influence was not limited to Europe or America. Africa played a special role in her story. In February 1952, Queen Elizabeth was in Kenya on a royal tour with Prince Philip. She had arrived as a princess, staying at the famous Treetops Lodge, looking out over the vast forests and wildlife. But during that trip, her life changed forever. News came from London that her father, King George VI, had died. In that single moment, she was no longer Princess Elizabeth, she was Queen. That connection meant Africa would always be remembered as the place where her reign began. Over the decades, she returned to Africa many times, and each visit carried weight. To newly independent nations, she represented both history and continuity. Queen Elizabeth visited Ghana in 1961 at a critical moment in the Cold War. Some world leaders had advised her not to go, calling it unsafe, but she insisted, determined to show respect to President Kwame Nkrumah and to strengthen ties with the Commonwealth. The image of the Queen dancing with Nkrumah in Accra was broadcast around the world. It sent a clear message. Britain respected Ghana's independence, and the monarchy was willing to adapt to new realities. Her visits across Africa reflected this same balance. In South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, and beyond, she was welcomed not just as a symbol of the old empire, but as a bridge to the future. She spoke often of friendship, service, and partnership, words that helped maintain Britain's relationship with countries finding their own voice. For many Africans, she was the only monarch they had ever known, and her presence carried both gravity and warmth. By the time of her Platinum Jubilee in 2022, leaders from across Africa sent messages of respect. They remembered not only the Queen who became monarch on their soil, but also the Queen who returned again and again, recognizing Africa's place in the Commonwealth and in her reign. And that's not all. While her public side was formal and disciplined, Elizabeth's private world revealed a softer, more personal figure. She was known for her sense of duty, her quiet composure, and her ability to remain steady in the face of change. But at home, her true joys were often simple ones. Queen Elizabeth loved her animals, especially her horses, which she bred and cared for with great expertise. Her passion for racing made her one of the most respected figures in the sport, admired even by professional trainers. And of course, there were the corgis. Throughout her life, she owned more than 30, and they became inseparable from her image. Trotting beside her in countless photographs, they symbolized her affection and warmth in ways words never could. For the Queen, animals were not just hobbies. They were companions that offered comfort in the quiet moments of her life. But the heart of her private world was not only in her animals or her estates, it was in her family. At home, she tried to be close to her children in ways that mattered, even though the demands of the crown often took her away. Holidays at Balmoral or Sandringham gave her a chance to step out of the rigid schedule of monarchy and simply be mummy. There, the family gathered for meals, long walks, and games that stripped away some of the formality. These private traditions showed her children that even with the crown on her head, she was still their mother first. Her relationships with her 4 children were each unique. With Charles, the weight of the future always hung in the background. He was not only her son but her heir, and Queen Elizabeth carried the dual responsibility of preparing him for kingship while still nurturing him as a child. Anne, strong and independent, shared her mother's love of horses and her determination. They had a natural bond built on mutual respect and shared passion. Prince Andrew, often more outgoing and spirited, leaned on her support during his more difficult times. And Edward, the youngest, grew up with a gentler queen who had matured into motherhood and understood how to balance firmness with warmth. Of course, family life was not always peaceful. The Queen watched as her children's marriages faltered. Scandals drew headlines and private struggles spilled into public view. These challenges were difficult enough for any parent. But for Elizabeth, they unfolded under the harsh glare of the world's attention. One of the most delicate moments came with Charles and Diana. Their marriage, once celebrated as a fairy tale, had broken down into bitterness and unhappiness. The constant strain began to affect not only them, but also the image of the monarchy. At that point, Elizabeth made a decision that showed her private wisdom as much as her public duty. Rather than insisting Charles and Diana remain together for appearances, she quietly advised them to separate. It was a rare step for a monarch raised on tradition, but it reflected her belief that personal happiness and well-being mattered more than maintaining a facade. This intervention revealed the Queen's approach to family disputes. She didn't storm in or impose her will, but when the time came, she acted with quiet authority. She understood that harmony at home could not be forced, yet she also knew that calm guidance could ease pain and protect the bigger picture. By helping Charles and Diana find a path away from conflict, she showed her children that she cared not only about the crown's survival, but also about their individual lives. From all of this, it's clear that the Queen's secret will align seamlessly with her legacy. She was always more focused on the future of the monarchy than on herself, and even in death, she continues to shape it with quiet intention and care. Stay with us as we reveal how well the members of the royal house are working in line with the will and legacy the Queen has left behind. How the royal family is upholding Queen Elizabeth II's legacy. Looking back at how Queen Elizabeth II lived her life and the secret will she left behind, it becomes clear that her family is now walking the path she quietly set for them. Her reign was built on service, discipline, and devotion, and the private instructions she left showed that she wanted those values to outlast her. Since her passing, the royal household has been finding ways to carry that torch, each member taking up causes that echo her vision, blending tradition with the challenges of a new era. Take King Charles III, for instance. Even before he wore the crown, Charles had earned a reputation as a passionate voice for the environment. At times, he has been mocked for speaking about organic farming and conservation in the 1980s. His views now look prophetic. Since becoming king, he has brought that lifelong concern into sharper focus. At COP26 in Glasgow, King Charles addressed world leaders, urging them to act with the urgency of war in the fight against climate change. His Terra Carta initiative calls on businesses worldwide to commit to sustainable practices, marrying his environmental focus with global economics. Much like his mother, who often influenced change through quiet persistence, Charles is shaping his reign around stewardship of the earth, of traditions, and of the monarchy itself. His son, Prince William, has built on that same theme with the Earthshot Prize. Launched in 2020, the award is given annually to 5 innovators with ideas to restore the planet. At ceremonies in London, Boston, and Singapore, William has taken the stage to honor winners tackling issues from plastic pollution to renewable energy. He often speaks about creating hope for the next generation, echoing the Queen's lifelong commitment to continuity. Watching William hand awards to young scientists and activists shows a modern expression of what Elizabeth always embodied: duty carried out with dignity, but aimed at the future. If Charles and William have carried forward the Queen's concern for the planet, Princess Anne has taken up her mother's mantle of unrelenting service. In 2023, Anne was seen riding on horseback as gold stick-in-waiting at King Charles's coronation, a ceremonial role dating back to the early 1400s. The sight of Anne, steady and commanding in front of thousands of troops, was a reminder of her central place in royal tradition. Beyond ceremony, Princess Anne's diary is packed with engagements, over 400 appearances a year, ranging from military regimental visits to charity meetings in rural villages. Like her mother, Anne is rarely the headline, but always present, embodying the idea that service is a duty, not a performance. But that's just one part. The other part reveals more interesting observations. Don't go anywhere. The Queen's youngest son, Prince Edward, has also stepped forward in visible ways. He now leads aspects of the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, a program that challenges young people worldwide to learn skills, volunteer, and build resilience. At ceremonies, Edward hands out certificates to teenagers whose lives have been shaped by the scheme, a living extension of his parents' vision for youth development. Alongside him, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, has carved a reputation as one of the most empathetic royals. She travels extensively to support victims of violence and advocates for those with vision impairments, often choosing causes that receive less attention but matter deeply to those affected. Their combined work shows the softer, human side of service that Elizabeth herself valued. Even Prince Harry, though distanced from the institution, reflects parts of the Queen's influence. His Invictus Games, created in 2014, bring together wounded servicemen and women from across the globe. At the 2023 Games in Dusseldorf, Harry stood on stage addressing veterans, their families cheering in the stands. The Queen, who devoted so much of her reign to supporting the armed forces, would likely have recognized in Harry's project the same spirit of resilience and healing she championed throughout her life. Beyond these headline projects, the royal family collectively continues to support over 3,000 charities, many of which Elizabeth herself had backed for decades. From hospitals and animal welfare groups to Commonwealth cultural organizations, these ties ensure her influence stretches far beyond Britain. Each engagement, whether large or small, reinforces the Queen's legacy of visibility and connection. It is also in smaller gestures that her memory lives on. Catherine, Princess of Wales, often wears brooches once owned by Elizabeth during public events, turning them into symbols of continuity. Family traditions such as Sunday lunches at Windsor remain intact. Handwritten L'Incintamobrie, Sempermurs, one of the Queen's quiet habits, are still exchanged within the household. These private details show that her influence wasn't only about ceremony, it was also about intimacy, about the rhythm of family life that continues even without her. In all these ways, the Queen's secret will and her long reign align seamlessly. Her message to her family was clear: service, continuity, and love must outlast her. Today, through global initiatives, military support, charitable work, and even the smallest family customs, the royal family is honoring that message. The monarchy has changed, but the values Elizabeth instilled remain firmly in place. So, what do you think about the Queen's secret will? How do you think it has changed the royal family? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.